If you measure a man by the size of his heart, his compassion, and love for others, then Dick Vermeil is a superstar. Through a rich professional and personal life, he's made us all better, more passionate, richer. I was lucky to play for Coach V for 2 years. It was special, and although my departure was painful, I left a better human. I always enjoy my time spent with Dick Vermeil. We usually talk mostly about wine, and I think that's exactly what I want to start today with you, Coach. Welcome to Great Dane Nation, and you and I and the common passion of wine, that's really where we ought to start our conversation, I think.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. And of course, we shared a few glasses, and everywhere I go, people ask me about the comment I made about Bryant Family Vineyard. I'm going to visit with him Tuesday at 3:00. He's a very sick man today.
Oh.
But anyway, I'm visiting with him on Tuesday at 3:00.
So I think for our listeners, to get them up to speed, we need to tell the story of a cold November, December afternoon in Arrowhead Stadium. And we were playing the Raiders, and the game was tied. It was back and forth, and we had an opportunity at the end to win it on a, 35-yard field goal. I think it might have been from the right hash, something like that. And I'll let you take it from there. The Raiders called timeout, and then what happened, Coach?
Well, you were jogging out, and I yelled back, "Hey, Morten, come here." And I said, "You make this thing. I'll give you a bottle of my Bryant Family Vineyard," which is a $500 bottle of wine today, and very hard to get, believe it or not. And you smiled and went out there and popped that thing through. We win the game. The first question asked me at the press conference, "What did you say to Morten Andersen?" Now they're expecting me to say some technical thing. No, I'm not that smart. I said, "Morten, you make this thing. I'll give you a bottle of my Bryant Family." And they went crazy. They all laughed about it. Well, the next day we get a call from the NFL office. "That's not legal. You can't do that." So I had to wait to Thursday to get it to you. And Don
I never got this bottle.
Yes, you did. And Don Bryant calls me. That from St. Louis. He says, "Vermeil, I have never gotten that kind of publicity before. Thank you very much. My phone's ringing off the hook."
Well, I'll tell you what, it was disarming in some way. I didn't feel nervous. You always focused on the task at hand, but it threw me for a little bit of a loop when you called me over. I think we kind of met halfway out there between the sideline and the spot where I was kicking. Because, I go into my pre-kick routine. I have my own little thing I do before the kick. But it kind of flipped me out. It completely, disarmed me in some way and relaxed me. Not that I wasn't necessarily that geeked up about it. It was a makeable field goal, but still, the situation was
automatic.
You gotta make nothing's automatic. So I thought that was a fun thing to share with you. And I know we got some mileage out of it. Bryant Family Vineyards got some mileage out of it. And really that's a love for wine. And of course, with your history, and I want to touch on that, obviously, with your great-grandfather, your grandfather, and the lineage of Vermeils and Jean-Louis Vermeil and so forth, and coming over from the old country and bringing the tradition of winemaking over here. It was in your blood from the start, was it not, Coach?
No question. Yeah, my great-grandfather on the Italian side brought his, then he was very successful in San Francisco.
Yeah.
And being successful in San Francisco allowed him the income to go up into the Napa Valley and search for properties because it reminded him of Tuscany, where he was born and raised. And he bought 21 different properties over the period of his life living in the States. The one of them, which I was born in, it's still there. It's now a doctor's outpatient home. And I went in there the other day to talk with the receptionist, and she's sitting in the doorway of the bedroom I was born in. And I said, to this lady, you're sitting in the bedroom I was born in almost 85 years ago. And she couldn't believe it. But anyway, that's the story. Then my grandfather, Vermeil, would take the properties that he owned that had the vineyard, which we still get our grapes from, the Freddie Annie Vineyard. He owned a portion of it a long time ago. My grandfather now, and the next generation up, Vermeil, would make Vermeil wines with those grapes, which we turned into a hobby in 1999. In 2008, my friends and I turned it into a business. And right now we're making the playoffs for the first time in 13 years. We're finally in the black.
Oh, that's wonderful. And I am helping you, I hope.
Oh, no question.
Just a little bit. I love your wines, the Rosedale Block, the Picket Fence. Well, there's so many. And the Zin, of course, some white wines as well.
Yeah.
And you've done a great job, and that wine has come a long ways. You know, it really has improved tremendously. So many more levels and depth. And this is not a wine podcast, obviously, but I do want to give you props for being patient and being stubborn about it, because that's what it takes.
Yeah, and I'm no wine expert, but I know what tastes good to me. And I grew up on homemade Vermeil family wines, and we kept improving the product. It started out as a hobby with friends I grew up with in the Napa Valley, and my friends turned it into a business in 2008. And since then, Thomas Brown has entered in 2014. Who, to me, I call him the Bill Belichick of the Napa Valley. He's number one, number two, number three winemaker in the country in California, anyway. And he brought in Andy Jones to be our winemaker, and we just upgraded the process. We now are making our wines at Mending Wall Winery on the Silverado Trail, which Thomas Brown owns part of it. And we were there yesterday afternoon watching them work on the Rosedale Block as it was crushed and put in the tanks and that stuff. And Sunday, we're holding our wine club event there on Sunday. But anyway, our goal is just not to make a lot of wine, but make it special. It's now getting between 93 and 96 grades, which is, it's outstanding wines. And people are paying a lot more for range of wines not evaluated or graded as high. Now, you got to be careful chasing grades too. But anyway, we're very pleased and proud of the process right now.
I bought a 16-liter bottle from you guys. It's a Super Bowl limited edition that will be drunk this Thanksgiving with family and friends. And I look forward to I love the large format bottles. But, I want to say something about your coaching style and what resonated with me in Kansas City for those 2 years. And having talked to you for a long time and been friends with you, colleagues with you, I think you did a really good job of delegating and trusting people that were really good at their job and allowing them the freedom to operate without constantly meddling. And it may not have been that in the early years in Philly. That might have been a different. And I'll let you talk. But it's kind of the same way in your wine business. It seems like you've turned it over to people who really know what they're doing. And then listen, we understand you're the bling bling out front, right? And that's important to have. But is that accurate to make that sort of analogy between football and your football coaching style and also the wine business?
Yeah, that's very true, Morten. When I was in UCLA as the head, I'm in high school and junior college and college, I was the head coach, my own offensive coordinator, coached my own quarterbacks, ran the own place. Same with Philadelphia for 7 years.
Yeah.
Then going into broadcasting for 14, I knew I could not use the same process. So then I had offensive coordinators, and I always had a defensive coordinator, and some of the best. God, Marion Campbell in Philadelphia was just outstanding. Bud Carson came with me to the Rams, and then Peter Junta and John Bundy took that over when Bud Carson retired. But I knew I couldn't do it the same way. So I became a better delegator, and in some instances, a designator. And the difference is when you delegate, you also work within that process. When you designate, you just, hey, go do this.
Yes.
Now, my job, I felt, was to support that person in charge with everything that he needed to be as good as he had the ability to be. Develop a discipline program, a work ethic within the program, within the entire building.
Sure.
And to get to that, and put a player and a coach in a position for them to be the best they can be, and build relationships within that organization.
Yeah.
And then let's work together and get it done, And as I sit here and look at you, I often think of this time that you remember on Saturday mornings, I used to give a profile of the team captain for the game.
Yes.
And the first time I did it with you, the meeting was all over, and the kids are walking out. A rookie stopped and said, "Coach, do you know I wasn't born when Morten came into this league. And he wanted to call you Mr. Anderson.
Oh, I know.
To call you Mr. Anderson.
Yeah, I didn't like that. And it was telling, and it was very poignant for me to be in a locker room with guys that weren't born when I started out in New Orleans in '82, and was almost surreal in a way. But it was also very unique and cool. And you caught me at my tail end of my career. I didn't have the power I had back in the '80s, and I had some injured problems. So just to my earlier point in the intro, the departure was painful, but it was probably needed. You made a good choice. Well, you made a good choice. Lawrence Tynes was the right person for that time, and heck, I still went and played another 3 years. So
yeah, I always felt it was my responsibility to be as honest as I could be with the players I work with, the coaches I work with, and the ownership. And I had responsibilities to do my job. And it started with the ownership down to the president and to the GM, who was both Carl Pederson, had both responsibilities. And so regardless of my relationship with the player, I had to do what was right for the organization.
Yeah.
And more often than not, the entire staff was like a board of directors. We decided a lot of things together. And there were times I overruled them, and there were times I made mistakes in my overruling process.
Sure.
But that's how we operated.
Yeah.
And some of the finest relationships I have are with players I let go.
Yeah.
But they knew I cared about them. They knew we cared about them. And deep down in, they knew it was time. Okay.
Yeah.
And if I thought they could still play, I would work hard to get them a job on another team, which many times happened.
Yeah, well, I still, like I said, still got 3 years, and that was including 20 months unemployed in a park before I ended up in Atlanta. So I still had a little bit left in the tank.
Well, who loved you more than anybody other than your wife and children was Frank Gansz Sr. Okay.
Well, and he held, I'll get to Frank Gansz Sr. because he was a life-changing person in my life and in many people's lives.
Mine too.
He was direct. He was uncompromising. He was unapologetic, and he was so competent. He was the best. Now, I have affinity for special teams coaches, and maybe that's one of the reasons I love you so much, because you and Marv Levy actually were the two first special teams coaches in the National Football League.
Right. My job when I went to UCLA as the offensive coordinator, Marv took my job. I was there in 1969. When I left to go to the UCLA be this offensive coordinator, Marv took my job. And it really bonded us together because we became good friends all through our careers.
Yeah, that's an amazing piece of research that I found out, and I think that's why you always felt and you always emphasized the kicking game. You knew that's just not an afterthought, but it was literally a third phase.
No question.
Of the football team, and that you needed the components, the elements there to make it powerful. And you always had good kickers. You had good return guys. We had Dante Hall. We were a force to be reckoned with. We scored more points in Kansas City. You did the same in St. Louis. But before we get to those runs, I need to talk to you a little bit, because you were a West Coast guy, and then you go to the East Coast. You end up in Philadelphia the early years. You were a different guy then, right, Coach? Right. I mean, you were, and I saw the movie with Vince Papale, Invincible, and I always had this feeling, and the same with Kurt Warner and Vince and so forth, you always liked the underdog.
I did.
You embraced them, and you wanted to give him a shot, and you wanted to see him succeed. Can you talk to me about the early days, not only with Vince, but the culture back then, and how you changed, how you started out there, intense, slept at the office 5 days, a week. Maybe I'm exaggerating, but
you're right.
You really burned yourself out to the point where you ended up retiring. So take me through the Philly years. Take me through the Vince Papale story. I know it's been told a lot, but just those early years as a pro coach, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Well, Morten, I left UCLA after we beat Ohio State in the Rose Bowl. It's still considered the number one upset in the history of the Rose Bowl, which put me in the Rose Bowl Hall of Fame. Okay. But anyway, I leave there and I have good players. I have all-conference all-American quarterback. I have all-American guards. I have players. Now I come to Philadelphia. They've been losing forever. They have no first, second, or third round pick the first year. No first, second round, or third round pick the second year. No first and second to third years. So I figure, first off, I'm never going to, and we're not going to outsmart anybody. The way we can do it is outwork everybody and develop our own players.
Yeah.
So we just doubled everything I had learned working in pro football with George Allen, Tommy Prothro, and Chuck Knox. We just doubled everything we did in training camp and everything. And we gradually developed a roster of players that didn't know at the time they had the ability to be as good as they end up being. And our theme was hard work is not a form of punishment. It's a solution. And you know that in your own career.
Sure.
The harder you work, the better you get. And there's no correlation in anything you do between working less and getting better. It just doesn't exist. And I think sometimes the reason we have more injuries in the NFL today, serious injuries, is players aren't worked and prepared for the contact on Sunday. But anyway, that was my approach, and that's what we did. And we had 12 players off that original roster that we took over that went to the Super Bowl 5 years later, 12 guys. And I can give you an example. Regardless of how intense and long the practices were, my left tackle, my center, and my right guard, Stan Walters, Guy Morris, and Jerry Sizemore, okay, both tackles played in the Pro Bowl 2 or 3 times apiece. They played 7 years with us, and between the three of them, they failed to start 3 games. Last year, the Philadelphia Eagle offensive line never played together once. They were hurt the whole year. So I'd like to believe, yes, it was tough on them. I'd like to believe we developed a esprit de corps and a camaraderie that didn't exist on a lot of teams because it was work the guy out and cut him and find somebody better. I didn't build a football team that way. There wasn't free agency, and we didn't have the draft choices. So I hired coaches that could help a player get better. And so then that's the approach we took. But to do that, you had to stay on the field longer.
Yeah.
And so we never failed in 3 teams we coached. We never failed to not have an all-pro left tackle. And one of them became a Hall of Famer in Orlando Pace. Never failed to have an all-pro quarterback. And one of them became a Hall of Famer. And you played with Trent, who played in the Pro Bowl twice.
Yes.
Jaworski was NFC Player of the Year once.
Polish rifle.
So I never failed to have a kick returner make the pro football. We never failed to have a running back make the pro football, and they weren't all Marshall Faulks, okay? But if you work somebody intelligently and deliberately to help them individually improve their skills, it's amazing how much they gain confidence in their own performance. And also what happens, Morten, hard work becomes important to them. They start appreciating what they have gone through to be what they are today. And it really, I think it positively influences the way they think at everything in life, And I can tell you, I stay in touch with my guys, and I hear from them all the time. And 16, 17 of them live in Philadelphia, where we live. Sure. And we share wonderful experiences. I share hospital experiences with them now, and some of them are struggling a little bit, because of the punishment they took through 10, 12, 13 years of playing in the league. And I also think the NFL could do a hell of a lot better job in respecting these guys financially.
Yeah, that's a conversation for another day, Coach. But I agree. We need some equality there. There are some guys that played back in the day who just didn't make the money, who today absolutely are having a hard time. So we need to do a better job there. So Vince Papale comes. You have open tryouts. I think it's an interesting story just to briefly touch on.
Yes, well,
and you find Vince, and you saw something in him.
We had about 150 guys show up to this open tryout on a Saturday, and I mean they were all shapes and all sizes. Believe me, from kickers to roly-poly guys to some talented guys, some guys that played high school ball, college ball, or semi-pro ball, and we signed Vince Papale out of it. Here's an Italian kid who was the fastest guy in camp. I think he ran 4.5 at that time with a stopwatch. Okay, and that was impressive. And he did not play college football. St. Joe's, he was a track man, and he was a good track athlete. And you could see that in his running skills. We didn't have any draft choices, and we were going to have a long training camp. We started training camp July 3rd. Okay. And I don't think we ever took the pads off. That was just the way it was in those days. But anyway, he made the team. And, he was a South Philadelphia kid. The stadium's in South Philadelphia. And he became a symbol. When he jogged on the field on a punt coverage team, they cheered him. And we weren't making any first downs, so they didn't have anything to cheer about. But anyway, that lasted, and he got hurt. I think he lasted 3 years.
Yeah.
I became very good friends with him and his family. And he has a son that I think can play in the league, but he can't get a good chance. He's been playing in these other spring and summer leagues and plays well. But anyway, that's
still stay in touch.
Over the years, from what I was told, grossed over $800 million.
Unbelievable.
Now, I'll add on to that story. 2 days ago, I watched a movie of the new movie on Kurt Warner that's going to come out December 25th, Christmas Day. It's unedited, but they brought it up to show it to me. And I invited guests to come to. We're the only ones in the theater. It's outstanding.
Underdog is the name of it.
Yeah, American Underdog. It was outstanding. And it's a true story. And there were some things they manufactured within the football world. They left out his first year at the Rams and went right into his second year and made it look like it was first year. But the story is true. And it was very touching, very, very well done. And I'm looking forward to the reception it's going to get when the whole world gets to see it. But that's another Papale. But you're right. I really love the free agent kid, London Fletcher. London Fletcher. Nobody wanted London Fletcher. We signed him. He played 16 years without missing a game. He's now a Hall of Fame candidate, and he's deserving. Morten, I've seen Hall of Fame kickers in you. I've seen Hall of Fame tackles, guards, and I have 15 different players I've been involved with here in the Hall of Fame, 10 of them as a head coach. So I know what they look like. I know what they look like. And when I say this guy's a Hall of Famer, I think I have some credibility and that should be listened to. But and I know that's a process. That's a process, and one that we all respect. It probably took you too long to get in there,
Well, it took you too long. And since we're on the subject, congratulations, you're a finalist. We got to get 80% in January. I think we will. And let me just ask you then right up, it's a tough, hey, it's a question that's heavy, but what is it going to mean for you when, I'm going to say when, I think it's a foregone conclusion when you put on that gold jacket?
Well, I think it's an unbelievable reflection of everybody I've surrounded myself with. I've never tried to make it all about me. I've really, really enjoyed the coaches that I've had the opportunity to work with, just out, and I've learned so much from each one of them. I came up as a high school coach, and I can remember Morten being very nervous shaking hands with Tom Landry and Don Shula because I never felt, oh my God. I'm watching them coach on Sunday, and I'm coaching Hillsdale High School or Napa JC, and all of a sudden I'm on the field with those guys. I never really felt comfortable. I was sort of overwhelmed in their presence, and now I find myself going on to a team, possibility-wise anyway, the same stage with those guys, and it's humbling, and I'm very grateful to all the coaches and the players that put me in this category. And hopefully I've made enough contribution to earn the right. I can think of some guys I think belong in there before I do, No,
you belong. And I think maybe having Tom Flores go in, this year, and you can discuss who goes in first, whatever, but that helps. That helped you. Well, that helped clear the way. It's like that. There's a gauntlet.
Yeah, well, there's a process. The process has changed. Yeah. As you know, what took you so long was that now they have player category, contributor category, and a coach category. And that's only been the last 2 years, the contributor and coach category. They've always been considered in competition with a player. So that makes it tough on the contributor category and the coach category. Now they're in separate categories. And I found out I was in the hunt in the first time they used the process. And Bill Cowher and Jimmy Johnson went in, very deserving people. But I never really felt I was in the hunt until someone told me at that time my name was discussed within the meetings. And I said, well, maybe sometime I might get in. And then Carl Peterson took charge of being an advocate and organizing people. And, I'm very, I had a bunch of coaches stepped up. Andy Reid, and these guys stepped up. Bill Cowher was verbal at the Hall of Fame meetings this year in Canton. And, Tony Dungy, these kind of guys, Jeff Fisher stepped up and Bill Belichick were backing me as a candidate. Not that it didn't back someone else as well, but that was, I'm walking out of the airport, just getting off the airplane, and my phone rings, and it's Dave Baker. Says Dave Baker, Coach Vermeil, Dave Baker here, and I'm not calling you to buy a case of wine. That's what he says to me. I'm letting you know that you just won the vote for the coach nomination going into the Hall of Fame. Yeah. And I said, my first comments were, oh my God, I don't know if I deserve this. So I lean back against the wall and I tell Carol what's happening, and she screams, well, it's about time.
Well, it is.
And you know her well enough to know that.
Oh, absolutely. This is great.
Yeah. And then I started thinking, and it really sort of was overwhelming. It really was. And I go back to the term grateful. Yeah. If I don't have Morten Andersen, we don't beat Raiders that day. If I don't have Trent Green develop from being a guy that only played 13 games in 6 or 7 years in his career to a Pro Bowl quarterback, or to Kurt Warner coming from the Arena League to a Hall of Famer. If I don't have these kind of people and the kind of coaches I had, I'm not there.
Or Orlando Pace.
No. Hey, Marshall Faulk.
Will Shields.
Yeah. Hey, Mike Martz. The contribution and Frank Gansz Sr. And you mentioned it. Frank Gansz Sr. was the finest combination, complete package of any coach on any level I ever worked with.
He was unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
I had the best year with him in '95. We were together in Atlanta when I got released.
Over 50 yards for him.
I had eight that year, 3 in one game.
Unheard of in those days. That was unheard of.
Yeah, he got me to another level.
No question.
To use his vernacular, we were speaking the same language.
Yeah.
And success favors the exceptionally prepared, which he had so many great sayings, but they were sayings that were rooted in reality and in truth and experience. He made a lot of references to the military and history, correct?
Yeah.
Especially like military history. He was, as you know, and we'll tell the listeners this, on Saturday night before the games, Frank Gansz would speak.
Yeah.
And he would get up and everybody would be, oh man, are we going to talk about the SAS today? Are we going to talk about the Navy SEALs? Are we going to talk about the Second World War and the Battle of the Bulge and General Patton? And I left yesterday, and what is it going to be? And he was phenomenal in his ability to connect, if you will, those two worlds, the high performance business.
Yeah, and quickly earn the respect of everybody in the room. Now, when I was coaching the Rams, we had offensive linemen would go to his meetings that weren't on special teams in these specific games.
I know.
The Saturday before we played the Minnesota Vikings in 1999 in our first playoff game, I took John Madden into Frank Gansz special teams meetings. Mm-hmm. Now, John Madden and I go all the way back to California history and good friends. So he comes out of that meeting. You know what he says to me? That's the finest meeting I've ever been in. Can I bring a camera crew in if you win this one next Saturday? I says, no way. Frank wouldn't allow it, nor would I. Because, most people would think it's a movie set or something, or someone wrote the script. He was so intelligent, and
he was able to, and his pauses, pregnant pauses, the way he spoke, public speaking, and you've had a lot of experience in that, and you're a great public speaker. But he was phenomenal.
How about if somebody yawned in this meeting?
Oh, how about? And if you didn't duck, you'd dance.
You didn't duck. I'm sitting in the back of the room one time, and 2 rookies come walking in his meeting about 3 minutes late. I swear those kids, I mean, and it was never insulting, but it was demanding conversation between Mr. Gansz, okay, and 2 young rookies. They were almost crying by the time they actually sat down in their chairs.
He did not discriminate. He never discriminated against, he would be consistent with everybody. Tough love, if you will.
From the all-pro to the guy that's a marginal player, they were all, and the player, Ray Agnew many times would say to me, Ray Agnew is now the assistant GM at Detroit. Coach, I just loved his meetings. It got me ready.
They were the best. I was on a roll in 95, I remember, and I think I was like 24 in a row. And, everything's going great. And then I had a hiccup. I missed a kick, and oh, man. But I missed a kick that was makeable, that he knew I was capable of taking, right? But I didn't make it for whatever reason. He didn't say – he kind of looked at me before the meeting, and I knew, oh, man, here it comes. And he let me have it. And everybody in the room's going, what the heck? What's going on here? The dude just had 24 in a row. He didn't care. He demanded the highest level of performance, uncompromising performance and preparation. And if you screwed up and you were an all-pro or a rookie, like to your point, it didn't matter.
Didn't matter. No, and I'll tell you something I haven't told many people. 1999, win the world championship. And I say, having an opportunity to go out as a world championship football coach, especially starting where I started from, is an unbelievable privilege. And to be able to go home and be with your family, and your grandkids are being born and being raised and all that, says, I'll go home. So I tell the staff that. The staff all leaves the room. 10 minutes later, Frank comes into my office. He says, I want to talk with you. And he sits down in front of me. He gives me as if I missed 3 field goals in a row. And, I love this guy, and you and I both spoke at his funeral service, and I've stayed in touch with Barb, and I talked to Frank Jr. just last week, but anyway, just a great human being, and positively touched me as he would touch a player.
You mentioned 1999, Coach. Why did you retire after the Super Bowl victory? You had a team that could repeat. You had an opportunity to, not that you didn't do it specially there. You did. You built that team. And in your 3rd year, I believe you won the Super Bowl with the Rams, St. Louis Rams. Why didn't you continue?
Well, first off, I felt it was a way to go out of a profession as a winner, a world champion. I watched Tom Landry get fired. I watched a lot of good football coaches. I also had a 1980 NFL Coach of the Year trophy. I still have it, and had the names of like the last 15 guys that had received that award. Almost all of them been fired after they received it. And I didn't want to put myself into that category. You just stop and think, the last one, the head coach of Philadelphia Eagles wins a Super Bowl 2 years ago, and he loses his job 2.5, 3 years later. And it's just how the league is, 30% of the coaches that ever wore the title on the shirt, head coach, been fired after the first year. So I figured the opportunity to go out as a winner, go home and be with my 11 grandkids, my 3 families.
Wow.
And I thought it was time.
Yeah.
And, when I handed out the Super Bowl rings in May, I knew I made a mistake. I know. But I
How so? How so?
Well, I'm handing rings to guys that are going to be coming playing next year.
I know it.
I know it. We put in a lot of work to get to where we were. They lost more games in the 90s when we took the team over than any team in football. They beat out the Jets by 1 loss, to be the worst team in football for 7 years or 6 years. So, and then to win the world championship in 3, I said, God, anyway, accept that as a really wonderful thing and go home. And I did. And then Carl Pederson came after me and talked me into going back to the Chiefs.
Yeah.
Which
why did you do that?
Because I knew I'd made a mistake. I had great confidence in Carl. I brought Carl with me. I kept Carl on the UCLA staff when I took the head coaching job. I brought him with me to Philadelphia. I watched him grow as administrator. I took him off the field and put him in charge of being my administrative assistant so I could always focus on football. Then I put him in charge of personnel at Philadelphia, and I watched him grow in the USFL. And, he asked me to go with him in '89 when he became the president of the Chiefs and general manager, and I didn't do it. And I knew the caliber of man that Lamar Hunt was, just superhuman. And so we went, and it was a great decision. We signed for 3. We go 13-3, get beat in the playoffs. My third year there, which was always my third year was always, we won 74% of our games in the third year. We never had winning seasons before the third year because of our approach was to develop the players we have and then add to it in a systematic way that it worked for us. So I go home and I recognize I made a mistake, and I don't go back and pout about it. And my wife and I, Carol, we don't talk about it. We're just very thankful that we had the opportunity. Plus, it's the first time I really got paid. Like I tell Carl, he's the only reason we needed a financial planner.
Coach, I just want to put a bow on the Rams because you worked them just like you did the Philadelphia Eagles. You worked them extremely hard in the beginning, and there was a little bit of a mutiny on the bounty there. Did you work them too hard? And can you share that confrontation with the players where they basically said, "This is enough. This is too much. Can't do it."
Well, it never really came down to a nose-to-nose discussion, but I do know people were going up the back steps to the president. And fortunately, in the situation, they gave me total control of everything to do with football. And I didn't want to deal with all this other stuff. And I really didn't want to deal with this salary cap. You tell me who we can coach and who we can't coach and who we have to let go because of this and this, and we'll coach them. You do that. I'm going to focus on football and providing my assistant coaches with an atmosphere in which they can coach, provide the assistant coaches a player in the frame of mind to be coached, and we're going to work. And that's what it was. And I can remember our first OTAs at the Rams in 1997. We couldn't go 7-on-7. We didn't have enough people. I mean, it was amazing. We never had 11-on-11. We might have them the first or second day, and then they wouldn't show up the rest of the time because they didn't want to. A lot of them lived in LA because the team had moved, remember? It was a joke. But by the time we got there the third year, our biggest advocates were the guys that started there. We had 9 guys off the original roster that went to the Super Bowl. 9 players that went to the Super Bowl were on the roster when we took it over. But I'll tell you, today, when we get together, those guys, the first thing they talk about is how hard they worked to get there. And they also really appreciated me backing off on the third year. Now, we didn't what we brought to the Chiefs, the third year approach to training camp in St. Louis Rams. We didn't go with the first and second year approach in training camp in Kansas City. I thought the team was further along. At least Carl made me believe that. The Chiefs had a hard time with skilled players. They had all these other guys, but the skilled players they had a hard time drafting. And when I got there, I was shocked because I was spoiled with you talk about skilled players. 5 of those guys will be in the Hall of Fame off that Ram offense. 4 of them were in. Torrey Holt will be next. He's been in the finals twice. So it made us all look like better coaches than probably we really were.
Well, anyway, I tell you what, the Chiefs have the skilled players now, so let's.
Yeah. Well, Andy Reid always has those skilled guys. And as soon as you lose the big guys that allow the skilled guys to be what they have the ability to be, then they don't look very skilled.
No, that's a good point you're making there. I want to finish with a couple of things, Coach, if you don't mind. Your take on the teams that you coached as they sit today and a few elements of those teams. Mm-hmm. And then I have a little name game, and I'll name a guy, and you can say anything you want as it relates to that guy or coach, okay? And then we'll wrap it up. How special is Patrick Mahomes?
Well, I think Patrick Mahomes is a combination of all the quarterbacks that are already in the Hall of Fame. He has all their attributes. What does he not have? The only thing I've said, and I've said in Patrick Mahomes quarterback meetings with Andy Reid, I've said in the offensive coordinator meetings with Patrick Mahomes, I've said it in the team meetings, and I've spoken to the team there with Andy. So I know I've been around that environment, and I don't know what he doesn't have. Okay, if you talk about John Elway, who I always thought was as fine as there ever was, or Joe Montana, there were certain things maybe they couldn't do as well, as the best in the Hall. But you take the Hall of Fame quarterbacks, and you take Patrick Mahomes, he has the attributes of all of them. So I think he's going to end up being the best ever. Now, will he play as long as Brady? But he has more physical skills than Tom Brady. And if he maintains the right frame of mind, I think one day he'll be evaluated as the finest that ever played.
You look at the Rams and how they've built their roster now. Is it Super Bowl or bust for them? It seems like that window's closing. They got Stafford in a trade with Goff up in Detroit. But how do you see the Rams and their opportunities now? And what's that window like?
Well, first off, they haven't made many mistakes. And I know Sean, I communicate with him on text messages, and he drinks our Vermeil wine. And
good boy.
His first year there, I'm in California visiting our daughter Nancy in Beverly Hills, and I meet with him for breakfast. Now, we spend 2 hours for breakfast. And I left there. I said, geez, it was like talking to my grandson. Here's this 31-year-old kid sitting there.
Yeah.
And I said, me at 31 years old, I could no more be the head coach of the Los Angeles Rams than the man in the moon. And here's this kid with all this responsibility. But when I left our visit face to face, I was impressed.
Yeah.
Humble, bright, articulate as hell, defined philosophy, and I think strong-minded enough to, regardless of his age, control a locker room, control a meeting room, and maintain the respect and trust that you need to have as a head football. If they don't trust you as a head coach, it's going to be
no chance.
It's going to be
no chance.
And so I was very impressed, and I they have gambled a few times. They had a lot of money to this corner and a lot of money to this guy. Now that's the first time in history two teams have traded the number one picks in the draft. Stafford, number one pick in the draft. And here we go. And Goff, number one pick in the draft. And they swap quarterbacks. And there has to be a reason.
Yeah.
And so Sean, I think, sees other things in Stafford that he couldn't get out of Goff. Okay. But Ray Agnew, who was working in personnel at the Rams all this time, who played for me at the Rams, is now assistant general manager at the Detroit Lions, and they bring him there. So it doesn't mean Goff failed. It means he just didn't fit.
Yes,
head coach, and either personality or consistent performance or what. But I think the Rams got the best of the deal because Stafford has never had the supporting cast and has still played extremely well. In fact, Barry Sanders, God bless him, his finest player ever played. He never had the supporting cast and was great anyway. And he left not being a big playoff team or a Super Bowl winner or anything else. I think Stafford has a chance to be a Super Bowl winning coach, or player rather, excuse me now.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. That's the way I see that trade playing out. Mm-hmm. We shall see.
Yeah.
And
we hope we're right.
That's why we hope we're right. That's why they play the games.
Yeah.
You mentioned Doug Pederson's exit in Philadelphia, and I take it that you didn't like and you didn't think much about how things ended for him.
I was disappointed. I think anybody that took over a team and builds it and wins a Super Bowl, actually wins the game with a backup quarterback that supposedly can't play for anybody else as a starter, and then has a bad year last year. I think there's more to it than I know. I have no insight deeper than you do into the Eagles. I really don't. And I say that sincerely, and I say that I'm not bitter about it. I just don't have any insight.
Yeah.
But I got to know Doug, I thought he was an exceptional game day quarterback coach and play caller, and you won a world championship.
Yes.
Last year, 4 of the 5 starting offensive linemen didn't play. The right tackle is supposed to be the best right tackle in football. The right guard is supposed to be the best right guard in football. The center is an all-pro. He played all year. The left guard starter didn't play much. The left tackle couldn't play, okay, and the guy they drafted got hurt, and he was maybe a bust. And they put a backup line in there with a good quarterback. He didn't have a chance.
No.
He did not have a chance. But, that is a simple solution answer.
Yeah.
Media today, and sometimes ownership, they don't want a simple answer because they don't believe it. They don't believe it. And only time will tell. I think the Eagles will be much better this year. Why? Because all those guys are back and healthy. They're back and healthy. Now, Doug Pederson's gone. They've got a young new coach in Nick Sirianni, and hopefully he'll do the great job. But he's going to reap the reward of a healthy offensive line, at least to start the game Sunday.
Yeah. Let me finish here, Coach, with a couple of names, and you tell me what comes to mind when I say Kurt Warner.
I would say, first off, it's been determined the finest free agent signing in the history of the league. Okay. An unbelievable person. A person as a man. And, I always say this. I'm going back to Frank Gansz Sr. They could never determine who was going to win the Medal of Honor. Okay. You don't know what they're like. They don't know what they look like. They come in different sizes and shapes in battle. Okay. Kurt Warner, to me, is the Medal of Honor winner in the NFL. There's no way you could predict what he was going to do. And when we kept him for 1 year as the third quarterback, he almost didn't make it then. And when he went in and played, I said to him one time during our communication, I said, Kurt, there's something about you I really like, and I can't wait to find out what it is. Well, he showed me what it was. When Trent Green went down and he took over that, he ends up going from the scout team player of the year before to the most valuable player in the league. To me, he's a Medal of Honor winner in terms of football. It's just, and you know what he does right now in his foundation? He builds homes for children that are capable of living on their own as long as there's someone in that home to oversee it. Like, the one son that his wife Brenda had when they got married, was disabled. And now he's trying to help all parents that have children in the same capacity. So that's the kind of person he is. And football, the first 5 games he started in the NFL are the finest first 5 games in the history of the league, starting with a quarterback that never started before. No one's ever done it before. And Mike Martz did a beautiful job with him, too. And Al Saunders did a great job with him. Yeah. And Jim Hannafin on our offense. We had great coaching with those guys.
Ron Jaworski.
Ron Jaworski, tough-minded. I was on the Rams staff when they drafted him. I was coaching the running backs and the special teams for the Los Angeles Rams, Chuck Knox, when they drafted him. And I liked him then. I loved his tenacity, his toughness. I loved his ethnic background, and I thought he would really fit in Philadelphia. And he was really raw, and I was excited about having the opportunity to take this talent. But I was coaching him myself and see if I couldn't develop him into what I thought he had the ability to be. Great human being.
Trent Green.
Oh, I often say, who's your favorite player you ever been around for 5 years? And he fits in the top 5 category. And I can't tell you who's number 1, but he's in competition, as you know. Just a superhuman being, a great guy. And he stays in touch with you. He calls me, how you doing, coach? And one of the first guys that contact me after he hears about me going on the plane, he was in tears when he heard about it. And when he's talking to me, we're both in tears. Okay? So just a special guy and a very fine player. And Al Saunders did a beautiful job of coaching him, and he was ready to go. He'd been on the Redskins team for like 7 years before he ever got to play in a game. He played in the game because of an injury factor, so he gets to play and plays pretty well.
Played well.
We signed him as a free agent off those 13 games that he played. I liked what I saw in him.
Yeah.
And he was with the high school in St. Louis. It was a perfect fit if he was as good as we thought he could be.
Yeah.
And when he got hurt, He had thrown 31 passes in preseason games and completed 27 of them.
Yeah, that says
Special human being.
That says it all. When he came to Kansas City, he was extremely effective and was part of that high-powered offense.
Yeah,
he was a great teammate. He's still a great. He's a great announcer. Does a great job.
Oh, he does a great job.
Yeah. Marshall Faulk.
Truly gifted. Truly gifted. And I'd like to believe that our program really helped him because it took him a little while. He really bought into our work ethic. And I'll tell you, then he started practicing like he was going to play on Sunday. And I'd like to believe we helped him become a Hall of Famer. He was on his way when we got him. I became a lot smarter running back coach when we signed him. Players win games, not coaches.
You say that
job as a coach.
Yeah.
It's your job as a coach to put him within a scheme and a discipline and a relationship building program that would allow him to be what he had the ability to be. And when Mike Martz saw the things he could do, and he gradually started taking more advantage. I mean, he was unlimited.
Yeah.
But a truly gifted guy. And I really admire him. Yeah.
Tony Gonzalez.
I think Tony Gonzalez is one of the special athletes that I ever worked with. Close to a starting basketball player in college in a Division I. He was the number 6 player and played well.
Yeah.
Unbelievable hands. Unbelievable ability to make the difficult catch in a crowd. So he had a great concentration. And a guy, everybody says they hate losing. Okay. I've never talked to players and said, boy, I really enjoy losing. They always give me this, coach, I'm a winner. I hate losing. I've never seen a player react so emotionally low after a loss than Gonzalez. He was usually, after a loss, the last one out of the locker room. He would sit over in his corner with a wet towel around the back of his neck and down leaning over. Sometimes part of his uniform was still on, just so upset about having lost the football game. And he was a Michael Jordan. He wanted the ball in his hands, not for selfish reasons, so he could make a contribution to winning. And I'll tell you, well, one year he caught like 107 or 117 balls for us. So he's a Hall of Famer. I know what they look like. He is it, but he's also a Hall of Famer as a person.
Yeah, well, you'll see him soon in Canton, Ohio. Speaking of underdogs, Jared Allen.
Yeah. I was the reason they drafted him. I don't try to, I always said, if you want credit, go to the bank. That's what I used to tell my coaches. You coach those guys and give them credit. And, but it came to the 4th round pick. And I finally said, guys, listen, I had Grant Wistrom. I drafted him in the 1st round and I love him. I love him today. This guy is a bigger Grant Wistrom. And he's sitting there, and our defensive coaches didn't say anything. So finally I said, and I didn't have the final say on the draft. And I said, Carl, we've got to take this guy. And we took him. I loved him. Now he bugged our defensive coordinator a little bit because he was immature, both off the field and on the field sometimes. And he wasn't always as disciplined as you'd like him to be with fitting with the scheme. It would bug Gunther, would get upset with him. But I would say, just let's make sure we don't screw him up. Let him play. And if he does make a mistake, he'll make it full speed. And a couple times a game, he'll make a mistake and make us look smart. No, he's great football player. Great football. To this day, I can't understand why the Chiefs let him go.
Harold Carmichael.
Oh, he's one of my adopted black sons. Okay. Of course, I've known him since 1976. And, when I got there, I couldn't believe this guy. Everyone said, well, he wasn't real fast. He wasn't very fast the first 5 yards. But by the time he got to 10 yards and went on downfield with that stride, he was 4'4". Plus, he was 6'8". And he matched his talents with his profile as a person. Loved to work. And I set a weight limit on him. I said, you get over 230 pounds, I'm going to play a tight end. And so he didn't want to go in there because on our goal line offense, he came down as a tight end and blocked well. But just a great guy, and I've known him now since 1976. I see him a few times a year. he's a Hall of Famer on and off the field, just like yourself. And when he was there, we were all there watching him go in. I said to myself, there isn't anybody more deserving. And everybody uses the cliche, well, he should have gone in a long time ago. If he were playing in today's offenses, he played for 7 years in mine. That held him back because we were run-oriented defense, special teams. But 1978, he averaged 19.7 yards of reception. Okay. And he could catch every seventh catch was a touchdown. If I knew if I knew about football in 1976 through 82, what I knew coaching the Chiefs, he would have caught twice as many passes. Because now, see, we didn't coach throw the defended throw the ball to the defended receiver, throw it to the back. We didn't teach those things.
Yeah.
But nobody could contest for the ball better than he did. What other people didn't realize, he was a great quick screen runner because he was so big, the corners came up to hit him, and they couldn't hit him. Really, super guy.
The last guy I'm going to mention to you, I have a little bit of commonality with him. He's married to a Danish girl, and of course I'm from Denmark. It's our favorite guard, All-Pro, Hall of Fame guy, on and off the field. Will Shields,
Hall of Famer. You said it. A wonderful human being. I'd say he was the most disciplined, quality technique athlete in the offensive line I'd ever been around. You can remember our walkthroughs?
Oh, yeah.
He would walk through with the most serious mindset in regard to his fundamental techniques and playing against the opponent he was going to play. Even when he was not in the huddle and the second guard was in his position, he would be over on the sideline walking through things, working on technique, extremely skilled, intelligent player. When you see him now, he's hard to recognize, but he's about 40 or 50 pounds lighter, But I saw him when we were in Missouri, in Kansas City, a couple months ago, and we had dinner together. Special guy, a gifted offensive lineman, as an athlete, as a work ethic, as intelligent, as committed, a great community giver.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I can remember when I got there, he was a free agent. He could leave. I can remember taking he and his wife out to dinner. I almost forced him to start drinking red wine and talk about what we were going to do and how we were going to do it and how we would use him, because they really, in the offense they were running, they really didn't take advantage of a lot of his abilities in space. He could get out there and run, and he could also change courses, and he could line up and take an all-pro linebacker and deck him. And that's the best way to evaluate a true all-pro is how does he compete against another true all-pro? And he would win more than his share of those individual battles. So, you got to spend a few years with him. Very special.
Great. So I want to finish just by a few thoughts, and I have one more person I'm going to mention to you, and I'll get you final thoughts, and then we'll be done. What I think set you apart as a coach was your humanity, and what I mean by that is you talked a lot, and you talk a lot about relationships and about building relationships, sustaining relationships, and understanding people on a personal level. And to that end, what made a huge impression when I came to Kansas City in 2002, after leaving the New York Football Giants, was the culture that you had built there. The fact that in the off season, you would take groups, like you would take the offensive line, you would take the defensive line, the running backs, invite them to your home. You would do it during the season. The importance of connecting on a personal level was deeply rooted in you and Carol, and you couldn't have done it without your wife, obviously. So I want to thank you for allowing me into that world of, because I came from Europe, very stoic kind of setup and upbringing, but through my wife and also through people I've met, softened me over the years. and it made me more aware of just showing your feelings, and you're really good at that.
Mhm.
And so to that end, when I say Carol Vermeil, you say what?
No equal. No equal. You know, if I get in the Hall of Fame, there should be a category for coaches' wives, okay? Because she had no equal. You've been around the league. Have you ever seen a coach's wife?
Unbelievable.
Players like she did, and coaches' wives, and she enjoyed it, and she was part of the process.
Yeah.
But that process started when we were high school coaching, and all those kinds of things. And I just, it was me. It was part of how I was raised in my family, and it's part of the relationship building program. And I felt, and Carol felt this: the kids got to know who we are, not just some authority telling them what to do. And I can't tell you how many times I can remember Brian Waters sitting to my left one time, our big left guard. He says, "Coach, I never had a bottle of wine that didn't have a corkscrew. I mean, it had and the other thing is, when they, you hear the teammates sitting next to each other at a dinner table, the conversations they have, that they don't have them in the locker room.
No.
They don't have them on the field. They don't have them in the meeting rooms, and they get to know each other better. I just got yesterday a picture of a baby, Derek Blaylock's baby.
Sure.
Carol was holding at our running back dinner in the offseason in Kansas City about 4 days after he came home from the hospital. And he sent me a picture of it yesterday. I saw, oh my God, I'm in his football uniform. Okay.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, unbelievable. So, I just gave, I always realized that players win games, not coaches. Yeah. And it was my responsibility to help that player be the best he could possibly be. And the better I knew him, or the better feeling we had for him, maybe we could add a little dimension to his potential that someone else wouldn't, and he would end up being better than he would be playing somewhere else. And that was, and then also enjoy working hard.
And you did it, and you did it at the highest level. We won a lot of games together, Coach. And you won a lot of games and championships, and it's been a pleasure. Can't wait to see you in Canton, Ohio. Maybe we'll see each other before.
Needless to say, we will have a nice glass of wine. I appreciate your support. I know you're one of our great customers.
Well, no, I remember when I went into the Hall of Fame in 2017, you brought me a bottle of Screaming Eagle. So I appreciate
That's right.
I appreciate that. Believe me, that was enjoyed with a couple of good friends. I think, you were there, I believe. So, I mean, we had a great time, and it's going to be a party, man, in Canton, Ohio in 2022. I can't wait for it.
Thank you.
Coach, I love you, man, and be safe.
You give our best to Jennifer, okay?
I sure will. Take care. See ya.